Welcome back to The Circle, the podcast where we go all in on men's work, embodiment practices, and personal growth from our queer perspective. If you're enjoying the show, please be sure to share your favorite episode, leave a review, and subscribe. And if you have a question about anything you've heard us talk about, please send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. And now on to today's show. Today we explore how our desires change when we're in relationships. For some, it fades over time. For others, it grows. And sometimes that shift is just part of how our sexuality naturally works. In this episode, we explore the evolving nature of our desires with Nathan Serrato, a queer mindset coach and master practitioner in timeline therapy and somatics. We talk about how deep familiarity can soften sexual energy, why resentment often blocks connection more than shame, and how individuality plays a vital role in keeping desires alive. Tim, Nathan, are you ready to go all in?
Ready.
Alrighty.
Great, let's do this then. Nathan, welcome to The Circle. We're so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So I just want to dive right in. You've helped hundreds of LGBTQ plus individuals build thriving relationships. So I'm curious, what's one of the biggest misunderstandings you hear about desire in long-term relationships?
That sex should look like a porn film, and that it should be exciting and new, and that there should be lots of yelling and moaning, and everyone should have, six-pack abs. There's just so many unrealistic expectations about sex. And that's just not the reality of long-term, relationships, right? Sex is going to dwindle a little bit. Desire is going to fade, and you're not going to have sex as often. It's not going to be as exciting just because that's just the nature of being with somebody for a very long time. So, you sort of kind of adapt in new ways to that desire shifting.
I'm curious, how much is this expectation? And I'm flashing now to like a Disney film where you ride off on the horse and then everything is sort of amazing the whole time. How much of this expectation that sex should always be super hot is influencing our experience of what would naturally be an evolving thing? Everything else in a relationship evolves. Our trust, our communication, our ability to compromise, our understanding of bits and pieces of ourselves. And yet somehow with sex, you think, well, the first time we did it, it was this explosion and it feels like we don't have the same thing. So how much is that expectation working in this context?
Yeah, it's the wall that stops you from being curious, right? If I already have an expectation of who I think you are, who I think we are, and what the sex is supposed to look like, that's going to stop the creativity from flowing. It's going to stop my curiosity of discovering sex in a new way. So, yeah, and where does that expectation come from? Media, social media, comparing ourselves to other people who are having amazing sex and bragging about it. Oh, we don't have sex like that, babe. So there's always that constant comparison game. And that creates those expectations, which, blocks the erotic spark, the creative spark to it.
There's never a bad time to make a Golden Girls reference. And I think this is really important because anyone who knows, I'm just dating myself. Blanche in that entire series was the one who had all the sex, right? Or talked about the sex the most. And there was one episode where Rose, played by Betty White, was talking about her sex life with her husband. And it became clear that she and her husband had sex twice a day, every day for the entirety of their marriage. And I think they had been married for decades. I don't remember exactly how long. At one point she said, well, I kind of feel like those people who talk about it the most aren't the ones who are doing it the most. And it was this really funny moment. But yeah, there's this pressure of, of course, when we're out, you talk about this really hot experience. You might even be making that up. But the impact is, everyone around me is having really hot sex. So if I had a mediocre experience, am I losing? Am I low on the points right now? I'm just speaking from my own experience, but it becomes this game of comparison, which is crazy because how could I ever compare an experience I'm having with whatever experience you had with someone else?
No, it's going to be totally different. And can we stay with Golden Girls for a second?
We can always stay with Golden Girls. Let it be said.
I never thought I would say this, but I feel like Rose is actually a wonderful archetype for a great sexual attitude because she's always curious. She's never afraid to ask a stupid question, and she's just so lighthearted and playful. And those are all great qualities of being an erotic partner and tapping into your erotic body. It's just I bet she has amazing sex just with how silly she is all the time. Like,
So I think
great.
this is going to be the moment, when we call in the archetypes to set our container.
Totally.
I think King, Warrior, Lover, Magician, and Betty White, or Rose Nyland. I don't know. It's Rose Nyland. Yeah. So that's the archetype we're adding. Yeah, I mean, but I think what you're saying is so important because it was also true in all of the coach training I've ever had, but also sort of life training. Curiosity is such a powerful thing to cultivate because it kind of takes us away from an expectation or a judgment that it should only be this or this. I'm like, oh wait, can I be curious about how this might be fullest expression of this moment right now? Anyway, so yes, curiosity, Rose Nyland feels good.
Well, I'm going to bring some curiosity here. So one of the things that we said was that we can start a relationship off with an explosive moment, right? It's like the pinnacle where now we're chasing the dragon. We're trying to get to that point. But what if that first interaction was like actually kind of mediocre, from both parties' perspectives? Because I'd also like to call in the curiosity of like, we may be speaking on our personal experience of like, it was either a great experience or I'm having an amazing sex or I'm having not as great sex, but what about on the opposite side? So just two parts here. The first part is what happens as the experience, like as we build our relationship, if that first moment was like, right? And we continue to keep at it and we continue to see each other and we see the escalation of our desires and our sexual experiences actually start to increase over time.
I'm glad we brought this up because I feel like any gay man who experiences that mediocre first initial connection, they're so quick to drop it and be like, "Oh, we just aren't compatible. Bye, on to the next one." And I love to stay curious throughout that. Like, let's continue dating. Let's see how this flourishes. Let's see how this grows. And it takes a while for to find that rhythm, find that groove, and also the comfort, the emotional connection can build and develop and add to that intimacy and add to that passion and excitement. So yeah, I just encourage everybody to stick with it until you know for sure it's not a good fit or not, and you're not going to know the first time right off the bat. That's crazy.
Like I have a story. My first boyfriend, he was 23, I was 25 going on 26. And like the first night that we met was a drunken night at the bar and we made out outside and then we tried going home together and like playing around. Nothing ended up happening. Neither of us ended up coming. On the surface level, you could probably look at that and be like, oh, that wasn't a great sexual experience. But the next morning, like we took a shower together. We were in the bathroom. Like I was going to the bathroom, I was peeing, and he was like in the bathroom with me. And we're just kind of like developing a comfort with each other that then ended up turning into a 5-year long monogamous relationship.
Oh my God.
Right.
Okay. But somebody else could have had that same experience and they would have like been like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed. I didn't perform how I should have performed.
Right.
I'm a terrible sex partner. I'm going to leave. That's how embarrassed I am," and never talk to that person again.
No.
Right. Or vice versa. They'd be like, I actually think this person is bad at sex and I'm going to see them as a disposable human being and just discard them and never talk to them again. So it can happen in multiple ways. And we don't give that connection opportunity to grow organically.
I also have to share a story now because this idea of like bad at sex. So one of the people, probably one of the most impactful loves of my life, when I first met this person, it was not an immediate connection. And like that whole thing came from getting to know each other and like it deepening. And this person, I think, is historically kind of a bad kisser. The connection that we developed was so good that I fell in love with how he kissed. And so it was one of those like just to be like, oh, a thing that I initially wasn't like drawn to or wasn't blown away by, because of other factors, suddenly became a thing that was like, well, this is how I connect with you. This is like, so it's so clearly you, and I clearly am so connected to you that now I like the thing I didn't initially think I liked. If I had run away, I probably never would have discovered the really unique sweetness of that. I'm even thinking about it right now. I'm like, oh right, like there's like it's a sweet thing that I wouldn't want to give up. My memory of it and the experience that I shared with him.
And the way you talk about it with such tenderness, like I can tell that you cherish that. And again, I think the slowness in which that we approach relationships can be very, very helpful. Like, just to add to this story, I was dating a guy who he asked me out. I wasn't really attracted to him. And then, second date, third date, found out we had a lot in common. We wanted a lot of the same things. And that attraction grew and became really intense. I'm like, oh my God, I want to jump his bones now. But I had to let that attraction build just through conversation. And, I'm a little more demisexual. So part of that is the reason, that, I was able to build that connection. But you're not going to experience attraction right away. And how many opportunities are you going to lose to love by not letting it the space to grow?
Wait, say that again. How many opportunities are you going to lose to love by not allowing the space to grow? That, I mean, we could end the episode right there. I'd be like, that's such
That's
I
the
think that's a
biggie.
really
Yay.
powerful thing to contemplate.
And I've had these conversations with partners in the past that I felt pressure to have sex early on, and I'm like, I don't want to, right? Like, why is it weird that I might want to wait a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months before we have sex? Like, that wasn't uncommon that long ago. It really wasn't. So in the context of like relationships, like, so what if we're courting each other? So what if we're dating? So what if we are just exploring to see where things are going without involving sex and allowing to see if that inner beauty, that can I learn to appreciate this person's quirks and weirdness, right? If somebody is an interesting kisser, right? We can learn to appreciate that over time as that inner beauty of that person reveals itself. It's like,
Yes.
oh yeah, this person is unique and I love them for their uniqueness. Rather than
So,
jumping the gun right away and diving right in. And I'm not like advocating like prude culture or anything like that, but like sometimes it's like, can we just slow down? Can we just slow down?
yes, and we don't know how to do that. Like, as a society, not even just gay men, but as a society, we don't know how to like savor the moment. Right, everything is so fast paced. I was so frustrated with all of my friends who were watching White Lotus season 3. I don't know if you guys watched that.
I started the other
Um,
day.
it's such a slow buildup, right?
Mhm.
It's just subtle dialogue, and you have to really like pay attention and read between the lines. And I love that. Like, I love just exploring and playing and embracing just the slow buildup of things. And we can do that in relationships too. I want to experience the space in between our conversations and read between the lines and let that build up, like, you know naturally grow until it feels right to get down and dirty, which it will eventually.
So I think that we ought to make this episode about referencing as many television programs as possible,
Bring it on.
because I'm also going to talk about Game of Thrones. I remember people were getting frustrated that it was taking Arya Stark so long, that her journey, and in an interview, the actress playing her, and I don't remember her name, said, "You guys, it takes a long time to make a warrior, especially when you're going to believe, right? Like one that we're going to actually believe can do what she ultimately ended up doing." And you're like, right, would we have lost some of the sweetness of the moments? And there's one in particular, I don't want to ruin it if no one's watched the show.
That's me over here.
But there was one moment in particular that was so unbelievably satisfying. And I think, well, would it have been as satisfying if we didn't see her whole journey to this moment? If it had been too easy,
Yeah.
would it have been as sweet? And I think the answer is no.
No, let yourself work a little for it. Like, that's okay.
Totally.
Right. But even if you do get right to the meal quickly, right? And then you're chasing that delicious meal for your relationship, let's bring it back to the ebbing and flowing of desire, right? Because even if we are taking our time in a relationship and we're learning to savor the sweetness and savor the space in between, like, I'm sure at some point I've experienced this in relationships where it's been that way, where like desire will come up and then it will fade away. And I've also been on the other side where I've had really like fiery, dynamic, I thought was going to be a one night stand that ended up being a longer term relationship, right? That then the same thing, it ebbs and it flows. So, what is it about desire and our relationships and our intimacy and our closeness that begins to happen naturally?
Well, I think it's important to note that love and desire are operate in different parts of the brain. So love is more about attachment and familiarity and routine and safety. So love's a little bit boring, but we love it. It's comfortable, it's warm, it's fuzzy. And desire is more about novelty and mystery and the unknown. But you can't really have that when you wake up to your partner every day and you know exactly what time they're going to get up, what they're going to eat for breakfast, what time they're going to poop. Like it's not as sexy when you know everything about them. So that's why every day it's like getting to know your partner again and again, staying in that curiosity and discovering who they are in the moment. What are your desires today? What are you interested in sexually? Who are you becoming? What are your goals? And allowing yourself to meet your partner every single day. And that takes work. And we don't always want to do that. So,
Well, it's a practice, and this is
Mhm.
why I love yoga and embodiment yogic shamanic spaces. This understanding of entering into a process that we call a practice, because you have to come back and come back and come back and come back. And I know there's a resistance to that sometimes. Be like, I want to solve it now. I want to take this pill, um, and have it be solved. But what you're really talking about, or what I'm hearing you say, is a willingness to engage in an ongoing process that will, if you're doing it right, won't stop. Like, the nature of it will be that you keep going for as long as you can. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to think about this realistically, over the course of a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, there are going to be times when desire and sex are not a priority, right? Maybe somebody's parent is ill and in the hospital, and that's going to take priority for a while. Of course desire is going to go away. We're not taking the time to connect with each other intentionally. Or, maybe someone gets sick or someone has to go back to school, right? There's so many things that can take priority over sex and desire in that. And that's just going to have to be negotiated and maybe accepted in some cases.
As you were saying that, I actually flashed to, yes, I would say some people, like, let's say a parent is in the hospital or something is happening. Some people desire might fade. And some people, like myself, sometimes I just want to ravage somebody, right? I want to get out of my head and
Right.
into my body and have some carnal sex, right? Even if
Yes.
there's a big thing happening in my life, because it can be an escape, and
Hmm.
especially with a loved one, a trusted loved one, right?
Yeah.
Where, like, I've got something big going on in my life, and I need to escape with somebody that I love and I trust for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, for whatever. I don't. This isn't the 2 hour long love making session. That's not what I'm wanting, right? I want to
Yeah.
get out of my head and into my body and into your pants.
Even with something like that, that's like your erotic blueprint. That's you knowing that about yourself.
Yeah.
And that's super helpful, right? And even being able to communicate that, like your partner would be so grateful. Like, oh, that makes sense why your sex drive is so much higher. That makes sense why we're not taking the time to, like, touch each other and do the foreplay like we used to. I understand that now we can, like, have conversations about it and make sure that we're meeting each other's needs. But a lot of people don't know that about themselves. They're just kind of operating off automatic.
And silent expectations will breed resentment, right? If we talked about
Mhm.
if we talked about expectations being the wall that we put up, if we are not speaking those expectations, we are putting up a bunch of silent walls all around us, and then we're like, why can't you climb over that wall?
Well,
Why can't you come over?
well, I
Right.
mean,
Right.
it's like the love languages, right? Where it has occurred to me that initially, until you get to know someone, chances are you're going to give them the love language that you want, because that's the one that makes the most sense. You would need someone to indicate to you, and this has happened to me many times. Oh, I love affirmative word. That's like a form of, uh, that may not be your thing. Well, until you tell me what your thing is, I'm likely to give you what and so, but there requires an awareness and a bravery around that. So in your example, if someone's parent, God forbid, had passed away, I would probably really back off of any sort of sexual interaction, because chances are, when I've had parents pass, that hasn't been where I've been, and that understanding would be really, really powerful. Now, do we have the skill set to meet each other and say that, right? So
Yeah.
that's part of the practice would be, then I'm gonna let you know how I'm feeling, so that I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, then if this is gonna be of service to you, then maybe I can start to relax around it and not have this, like, Irish Catholic, approach to funerals." And,
Right. Well, and that's why
Right
the
there, we
sexiest
might
thing,
still
I
be at the
think.
Irish Catholic funeral, but I just might grab my partner and be like, "Get into the coat rack right now."
Okay.
Right?
Oh,
Like,
okay.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Okay. This needs to be a scene in a sitcom.
yeah. Speaking of television
But
shows.
to your point, Tim, I think that's why I think one of the sexiest things you can ask your partner is, "Hey, babe, what do you need?" Like,
Mm.
oh, like being asked that for me, and like and watching couples ask that of each other, like there's just like a shock of stillness sometimes if you're not used to it. But it's like, oh, what do I need? I've actually been running around like a chicken with their head cut off. Actually haven't paused to think about that, and then it gives them an opportunity to look at that need and see, can the partner address that, or is that something that that person needs to go and find on their own, depending on what it is.
I mentioned resentment earlier, and I saw your face light up, and I think that what you just said also starts to circle around that. So you've said previously that resentment is one of the biggest blocks to desire in long-term relationships. So in the couples that you've worked with and the individuals that you've worked with, what does that resentment often look like?
That resentment can really come from a number of things. We mentioned a couple, um, expectations that haven't been clearly communicated, and then we hold a grudge when those expectations aren't met. Maybe we have needs that we've been asking for, and it could be as simple as, "Hey, are you doing the dishes at night? Hey, don't forget to, pay the bills." And so it could be unequal emotional labor or physical labor on the house. Um, yeah, there's so many different things that can cause it. But then the constant asking, let's say you're dealing with the same issue for years and years and years. Your partner never picks up his shoes when he gets in the house, just leaves them on the floor, or the socks on the floor, and you're always picking them up day after day. That starts to be like a brick, each brick adding to this wall that's putting in between the two of you. And if you're not addressing it, and if you're not talking about it regularly, then it just gets bigger and puts more distance between you guys. And how can you create eroticism, connection, desire when there's a big wall in between you guys? You can't.
And this sounds like a wall that two people might not even realize is there.
Yeah.
And so, with my ex-husband, in couples counseling, we discovered. So I did this. I would wake up really early, and I would have a cold brew. Sit at the coffee table and have a cold brew, and then I would go to work. And it was my intention to come back, and I'm like, I'm gonna have another cold brew when I'm done, teaching fitness or whatever. And and he hated that I would leave the cup on the coffee table, but he didn't tell me that. So what he would do is he would take the coffee cup, like put it in the sink and wash it. And so we discovered in therapy where I would be frustrated because I was like, well, I wanted to use that cup again. And he was frustrated that I didn't realize that he wanted me to put it away. And this whole thing was sort of operating, but neither of us knew what the other one was wanting or feeling about a thing. So I said, as soon as I learned that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to work hard to put my coffee cup away because now I understand the impact that it's having. But in the moment, I'm like, you just keep putting my cup away that I wanted to reuse. While he's simultaneously like, why are you so thoughtless? And leaving it, and like, I get it, but we just were coming at it from. And so anyway, there was this thing, and in the therapy, I remember thinking, oh, this has been operating for a long time, and we didn't know it really. We didn't.
Yeah.
There was a wall, and we just didn't know there's a wall. So it's kind of hard to connect when there's a wall, especially if you don't know it's there.
Yeah. Because it operates out of your awareness. To you, it's just a coffee cup on a table. No biggie. Oh, that's weird. The coffee cup moved from here to the sink. Okay, I'm going to move on with my day. There are more important things to do. And so we don't think about the impact that it's having on the relationship until you actually give space to talk about it.
That's right. It was having a huge impact, and I thought, well, he actually said that he thought I would learn what he wanted based on him constantly. And I was like, well, 3.5 hours later, after 3 fitness classes, I'm like, I didn't even really notice. So it's just, so
Yeah.
the idea that we have to really communicate uh, I think is really important. And a lot of us don't know how to do that.
And I think your example is not that uncommon. I feel like many relationships have a lot of these silent things that go unspoken. So that that tells me, because I've been there as well, right? Like very similar situations. Like it's the shoes by the door. It's you always leave your underwear in the bathroom, right? Like why can't you pick up your underwear and put it away? And it's just like the challenge to have those conversations can sometimes be insurmountable. Like when I think about that, one of my ex-boyfriends, it was the underwear in the the bathroom.
Your underwear?
His underwear.
Oh, okay. And you hated it.
I hated it because I was like, your underwear is always in the bathroom. And like, I don't want to look at it. The hamper is right there. Put it in the hamper.
Yeah.
Right. But those conversations can be really challenging. So what's one piece of advice that you can give to people, one actionable takeaway about like how to tune into the body and like identify what it is that you might be wanting to ask and then make the ask?
Okay. Well, there's two things I want to say about this. It's one, you have to be having conversations about what's going well in the relationship, positive reinforcement of things that are going right, and then addressing things that aren't going so well. Hey, I would appreciate if you could put the cup away after you're done using it. Cool. The other thing I want to be clear is oftentimes the underwear on the bathroom, the shoes in front of the door, those are representations of something deeper that you're needing. So I don't want to let anyone leave this podcast walking away thinking, oh, if I just talk about it with my partner, they'll be fixed and then they'll be a clean human being who thinks about my needs all the time. Because more often than not, they are going to keep having that same pattern over and over again. Maybe less frequently, maybe with more awareness. But when you can think of what that actually represents to you, for some people, it's, oh, my partner doesn't love me. My partner is taking advantage of me. My partner actually doesn't care about me at all. So what is it that you need from that? Oh, what I really want is just some reassurance, right? I want reassurance. Can you find more ways of showing me that you love me? If you're going to keep leaving your underwear in the bathroom, take me out on a date every now and then.
Truly.
Ravage me in the closet after the funeral, right? What are some ways that you can show me that you care about me if it's not this, right? So get to that deeper level of what it means to you and what you need.
Asking for what you need.
And I think that's really powerful in reclaiming, right? That it's not necessarily just about that. It's something deeper underneath it. And that really is the nature of so much of the work that we do.
Well, but that's, I think, a really important part of this practice that men's work and my yogic journey has helped me to connect to. But sometimes I think without the tools or without a framework, it feels like it's about the underwear. It feels like it's about the coffee cup. It feels, I think there are a lot of really smart, well-intentioned people that would say, no, it's about that. And so I think it's inviting people into possibility that there's something deeper, and then that exploration. I mean, have you noticed that some people who it didn't occur to them that there might be something patterned beneath the circumstance?
All the time. It's honestly, it's most people. They come in and they're like, I will only be happy in this partnership if my partner picks up the dryer sheets that are laying around the floor, if they, take out the trash every time. And if you are so focused in on one way that the relationship's going to work, you're limiting your ability to win, because there's only one way that we can be happy. And it's if you do things the right way in this house.
And the right way being the way that what you think of as right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you take a step back and you're like, okay, well, what is you taking out the trash? What does that mean to me? I just want to feel loved. I want to feel respected. And there are infinite ways to create that in a relationship. And so you have to take a step back and create that together, right? This is a co-creation, this relationship. So how can we work together now? Oh, trust is what you need? Great. Let's build more trust. Here are some ways that I can come up with. There's some ways that you can come up with.
But so if a person is in the circumstance, you left your underwear, you left your coffee cup, you did whatever you did. How do you help that person discover the root, which in this case you said trust? Oh, I need trust. How do you help a person understand the root that they can then ask? Because without identifying it, you're not going to really have a specific solution, right?
Yeah. So usually there's a couple questions that I would ask. Is what does that situation represent to you? So maybe let's use the example of leaving dishes in the sink. What does that dish represent to you? What's the story you're telling yourself about that dish? And usually it's something like, my husband doesn't love me. My partner doesn't love me. Something along those lines. So when you can figure out the story, you're realizing, oh, this is not about the cleanliness. This is actually about me feeling loved. And so that's the need. And if you can identify that need, The underlying need, not I need you to take out the trash. It's I need to feel loved in this relationship. And you can identify that, then that's more opportunity then for you to find a solution that will work.
So I just want to reiterate that because that feels really powerful. One question is, what does that represent? So that can be applied to anything. It can be the laundry, it can be the coffee cup, it can be the trash, it can be the chore schedule, whatever. And a person can benefit from, well, what does that represent to me?
Yeah, and honestly, you can use this throughout your life too. Anytime you feel like you're reacting or you're triggered by something, what does this trigger represent to me, and why is it impacting me in such a deep way? Oh, I'm feeling less than. I'm feeling discarded. I'm feeling a certain way about it. Okay, cool. Now I can take steps to actually address this story that's playing out in the background of my mind.
That story, the fill in the blank. When my partner does X, I'm telling myself why,
Yeah,
right? And actually like
exactly.
filling out what that why is, right?
Mhm.
Like my partner doesn't put away the dishes, so I'm telling myself that they don't love me,
Yeah.
right? And that's right there, that little nugget that we're talking about.
Which is why I love embodiment. And I love, that you're all into yoga as well, because I think that allows us time to pause and really sit with meanings that we're creating in our head.
Mm.
Otherwise, we're not paying attention. We're just reacting off little things here and there.
I also think embodiment is really important when the thinking through something is too much. And so I'm going to use this morning as an example. I woke up a little bit of anxiety. I mean, people listening to this podcast know that I'm recently divorced and making gigantic life changes, and so wake up with anxiety. And in that moment, all these things are flooding through my head, right? And I'm not going to be able to change the uncertainty of what's happening right now. What I can do and what I did do was recognize what was happening in me physically, which was this tight tightness along my midline and sort of a jittery feeling in my limbs. And then I was able to use some of my tools to work just with that. So rather than trying to solve the uncertainty of my life, I said I can think about and work with the sensation that is currently existing in my own physical body. And it did help. So I think one of the benefits of an embodiment practice is that, well, I may not have a solution. I may not be able to tell you where I'm living in 3 months from now, but I can recognize what I'm feeling and then take an action, whether that was for me, it was breath, but it can be a meditation, it can be journaling, it can be any kind of, any number of tools we have in our toolbox. But the power of embodiment can be that.
Coming back to the present moment, right? Like tuning into that sensation, like that sensation is the present, right? It's what you're feeling. And so how do you bring in somatics, Nathan, into your work?
Mm,
Like when you're
yeah.
when you're working with clients who are bringing some of these things to you, and like Tim mentioned, like there's probably very smart people who it's like, nope, it's the underwear on the ground, right?
Right.
And they're not tapped into the story, and there's a barrier up to get to that story. How do you use somatics to help them make?
There are so many ways, but I'm going to start with Tim, your example, because I think that's a really common one. Is when we experience anxiety or a flush of emotion. I mean, we have 65,000 thoughts a day on average. And so if you're trying to solve your issues by changing your thoughts and shifting your thought patterns, that's it's going to take a lot of work. And sometimes you have conflicting thoughts. And so it doesn't always make sense what's happening in your brain and body. So, and this is that some of the challenges with talk therapy too. Like, I know what I need to do, but I'm not doing it. I know what I need to shift to make this relationship work better, but my body's afraid of it. And so when you can tap into your body, and so sometimes I'm just asking people to tell me what sensations they're feeling, that alone can dissipate the tension. Just pausing to reflect. Okay, I'm noticing there's tension in my shoulder and it's kind of a blue color and it's vibrating really fast. Oh, and I can see that that's just stress from my work. And okay, and even just talking it out loud can help dissipate so much of that anxiety and the extra stress and some of the panic that you might be experiencing. So that's one way I use it, is helping them ground into their body. Um, but another way I use somatics is in rewiring the nervous system. And so when you can shift the story from your body, you're actually helping your neural pathways shift on a deeper level than just saying the affirmation out loud or saying what you need to do. Actually feeling it in your body helps to create stronger neural pathways that way.
Feeling it in your body helps you to create stronger neural pathways. That's what I
Yeah.
heard you, and that feels important because, and this is partly why doing it, this almost faking it till you make it, right? Where you say it and you say it and like, but you do it over and over. You come back to a practice over and over so that your felt experience of it can start to deepen and deepen and deepen, right? And then that's really where the magic comes, when you start to then feel the thing you're doing. Is that what I'm
Absolutely.
hearing you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And that's why so much therapy and coaching, they're shifting towards these somatic practices, these somatic therapies, internal family systems, because that experiential process of moving through something can be so much more impactful than the affirmation or saying it out loud. Right.
Mm. It's interesting because in my coach training, we had to read a lot of different books, but we read Body Keeps the Score by Basil van der Kolk and The Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine. And in reading those books, I realized because I was because at one time I was a dancer and performer.
Everybody listening, take a drink of your beverage of choice, hydrate.
It's a drinking game every time I mention I was a dancer. But because of the way the practice of dance, the practice of acting, the practice of singing, and in these books, I realized, oh, I was having some form of somatic experience that could have been helping me move through these things without ever realizing it. So I never went to dance class or acting class or musical theater, rehearsal with that in mind. But I remember when I would leave, I would often feel better, and I think because it was drawing me in and asking questions about, well, how does this feel? Where, like, even when you think about vocalizing, where do you feel that in your person? Is that in your throat? Is that in your mouth? Is that in your like, even that, you're like, oh, that's a deep embodiment practice to understand where I'm experiencing this sensation right now while I'm trying to sing this thing.
And I just want to add to that. Speaking of being a dancer, I'm like, oh yeah, I like the movement and being connected to your body. Um, I well, where to even start this story? This is gonna okay. One thing that has helped me, one way embodiment has helped me is after experiencing sexual violence. I didn't really like men. I didn't want to be around men, and it's hard to be gay when you don't want men to touch you. And so, one of the ways that helped me was naked yoga. And sure, I could have talked about it in therapy to death, and I did. And it helped, to recognize that it wasn't my fault, to get out of those stories, but actually to rewire my nervous system. Being around men in a safe space, naked, helped my alarm systems to be like, oh, this is not a danger. You can actually trust men. And that helped me probably more so than talk therapy did, just going to naked yoga, because it allowed my body in a safe way to reprocess different triggers, different alarm systems.
I really love that you said that. I want to talk about naked yoga for a second because I've only taught naked yoga since I moved to Provincetown, and I don't teach it often. But I was nervous about it initially because I thought, oh, this is going to be a hypersexualized environment, and that isn't what I'm interested in facilitating. And
Mhm.
then what I learned, first of all, you just taught me something that I hadn't considered. But what I learned was that that isn't the environment at all, and that people were like seeking a safe space to feel comfortable in the ways that they did. And so I remember after the first class really softening because I'm like, oh, this wasn't, looking around at other people in like this sort of gawky, grabby kind of thing that I had envisioned. And it was much more, oh, this is a way in which I feel comfortable. And it never occurred to me until you just spoke about the safety of that container. Be like, oh, well, now we have a structure, which is a yoga class. Probably going to do a little cat cow. We're probably going to do some down dogs. We have a sense of what it is, even if you don't know exactly what it is. And so you just kind of blew my mind. And also, I think it's important because um, it never occurred to me that that was a benefit, but how delightful that it is, and how wonderful people can have that space to have the experience that they need.
Yeah.
That just never occurred to me. Thank you for sharing that.
Isn't it funny? By your second chaturanga, you forget you're naked, right? Because you've acclimated now to that environment. So
And the focus isn't about what's interesting when I practice yoga or even when I teach yoga, I'm never thinking about what I'm wearing. So also part of me is like, well, then unless I was cold, why would I think about what I'm not wearing? Once I'm in it, right? Like temperature might be the only reminder. Oh, I'm chilly.
Or my hood keeps falling over my head because I was chilly and now I'm hot and now I'm like in this sweat cave because my hood keeps falling over my face and then I am thinking about what I'm wearing. Or if I'm naked, my penis is turtling and now I feel self-conscious and what am I doing in this pose? And like, is somebody seeing? Yeah.
Turtling is a verb.
Turtling is a verb.
Turtling is a verb. I love it.
It's when your penis inverts, goes back into itself.
I know a turtle.
Yeah, thank you for that description.
Educational moment. All right, I want to take this back to desire because when I heard us talking about the examples of taking care of somebody's underwear, dishes, whatever it might be, I may start to lose myself, my sense of self as a person in the relationship, and I may start to take on the role of a caretaker. And taking on that role, I lose myself and I feel disconnected. I feel disconnected from myself, and I'm definitely going to feel disconnected from my desire. How am I going to see my partner as sexy and appealing if I'm their caretaker, if I'm playing the role of mommy or daddy, right? It's just not a sexy role.
You're not.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when somebody starts to feel disconnected from their desire in that way because they may be taking on a role in that relationship, like where do you start? Like where do you start to help them like reclaim themselves?
But it's moving from codependence to interdependence. And what that looks like is then getting curious about yourself and rediscovering who you are. Okay, maybe I need to go take a class. Maybe I need to rediscover hobbies or passions of mine. Maybe I just need to make more decisions on my own, create my own friend group, do something separate so you remember who you are, remember your magic, and then you have something to bring back into that relationship. I always tell people fulfilled people create fulfilling relationships. And if you're not fulfilled in your own life, you can't create a fulfilling relationship because you're pouring from an empty cup.
Sounds like purpose.
Yeah. Would you just review for us how you would briefly define codependent and then interdependent?
Yeah. So codependence is largely relying on one another, sort of needing one another to survive in an environment. And then interdependence, it's you both have your separate lives, but you're coming together and working together to create a unit. So whereas codependence is acting as one, interdependence is actually acting as there are three entities. There's each of you, and then there's the relationship.
Which I totally love because there's just there are a few spiritual traditions that talk about like the three pillars and that idea. I love the idea of there's me, there's you, and then there's us, and they can all exist together. It seems ideal for me.
And that's so much sexier because I don't know what you're doing all day. And then you get to come home and tell me all about it. And there's a mystery to that. And again, that's the part of the brain where desire lives. It's the mystery of who you are. What did you accomplish today? What are your goals? What are you working on? I want to find out more about you. But again, if we are just constantly together all the time doing everything together, there is no mystery there. There's no room for eroticism to grow in that space.
Some cases, right? So in that case, like eroticism is on the downswing, right? But there are individuals where that scenario might actually increase arousal, or maybe it's the desire for sex to fill a need, right? So, like, talk to me about the inverses that you see sometimes in dynamics, where maybe somebody's desire is going down while somebody's is heightened, and how do you help them find that middle ground where they can start to meet each other again?
I mean, it sort of depends on how it happens, but and I'll give you one scenario where someone's desire is down, and we got to give them permission to be able to want to experience desire again. So maybe they're closing off and saying no to all the bids for connection that they're getting, and the other partner is getting really resentful about it. And they're like, "I want more intimacy. I want more connection." So in situations like that, it's sort of discovering maybe what's the reason behind you saying no to those bids of connection. Sometimes it's just like, I don't even want to hug because I think you're going to want sex, and I don't have the energy for that. I'm grieving a part of myself. I'm struggling with work. I'm stressed out. Maybe I'm angry with you, right? So it's kind of getting to the root of what is stopping that desire for them. And then there are a number of ways that you can, practice and build that resentment back up. But ultimately, it's just talking about it. It's just having conversations and being honest with one another. But most people don't do that because it's awkward, or they're embarrassed to do it.
Or we don't practice it. And
Mhm.
and that's one of the importance of uh men's work and embodiment work and like the sharing circle as an opportunity to practice putting our experience into words, and also recognizing that that is a skill. So the first few times you try it, you may not be expert at it. And if the expectation is I can only ever do it if I do it perfectly, then of course most of us are never going to try it.
I'm going to keep swallowing it down over and over and over
Right.
again.
So like inviting in a messiness to the practice. Because I was a professional dancer.
Hydrate.
But you think about some of the movements that I would do frequently as a professional dancer, and how many times I had to try them, and how many times they had to go wrong or non-optimally before they became a reliable thing I could repeat over and over. I had to be willing to try it and it not be great, it to fail, fall down even, uh, and if people don't allow themselves that. So when it comes to the communication, I know a lot of people who I don't even know how to put words to what I'm feeling. So we need a space to practice that safely.
And it's interesting. I don't know if are you familiar with Gottman Institute? They're a big relationship research organization, but they often recommend doing a State of the Union every single week. And so you go into a space for an hour, you have it in your calendar, you can expect it. And there's a format that you go through where you celebrate the successes of the relationships, you bring up one challenge maybe that you want to work on, and then you move on with your day.
Mm.
But doing that every single week, like by after my couples do that maybe like 3 4 weeks, it gets easier and easier, and the challenges get much much less significant. They're like, oh, we're dealing with a big issue before, now it's just like little things. But that expectation and that practice, again, like you're saying, it just makes it so much easier.
And I also love hearing like there are opportunities to bring both the body online and the mind online at the same time. Like, yes, sometimes we
Mm,
just have to feel things, but in order to work with others, we also have to be able to communicate that. So we have to bring on our energy centers online together. Have to use our brains in order to formulate words. Sometimes we also have to bring on our bodies in order to actually know what it is that we're trying to communicate. And so, like hearing these examples, I'm like, yes, this is the power of spaces where we can bring all things online. You mentioned a couple times bids for connections. Can we take a quick detour there?
a bid for connection can be any time that I'm reaching out to a partner and wanting to experience connection. So it can be like I'm sending you a meme, I'm sending you a funny video. It could be like I'm touching your hip and I want you to touch my hand back. It could be reaching out for a kiss. It can be a compliment, anything that's going to create connection. And so when we create bids for connection, oftentimes what happens in couples is people miss them and they don't realize that the partner's doing it. And every time you miss a bid for connection, that can actually add to resentment. So
Mm.
it's important to be aware when your partner is doing that, so that we can lessen the amount of resentment that's happening in the relationship.
Would it be fair to also say that we should be aware that our partner may not recognize all of our bids?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, because
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely guilty of doing a thing and then be like, well, I did a thing and you didn't meet me exactly how I wanted you to. And that awareness feels powerful. Like, well, did they notice it the way that I meant it? Did they notice it at all? Maybe.
Hmm.
Or did they
Yeah.
notice it as the way I intended it? It feels like there's a lot of possibility for people to not entirely understand what it is we're doing, even if everyone has the best of
Right.
intentions, and have
But
bringing that.
because what it sounds like it is a more passive act, not passive aggressive, but it is more passive. It's not directly saying, "Hey, I want you to touch my knee." It is a passive act of like, I'm I'm bidding, right? Like I'm
Yes.
sending you a bid. Can you now give me an offer, right?
100%. And actually, you should not be embarrassed of asking that. I'm no stranger to, asking a partner, "Hey, can you ask me a question about myself? Like, I want you to be curious about me." And it
Mhm.
sounds so silly to them. They're like, "What?" I mean, who asks that? But like, yeah, I want attention. Yeah, I want love. I want you to, show me that you care. Ask me a damn question. So
Well, do you
we
say
shouldn't be
that
afraid to ask that.
when you say, "Can you ask me a question?" Do you follow up with the explanation of like I want to I want to feel seen right now, and it would be helpful if you asked me a question. Like, do you give them the
Yes.
context?
Yes, you probably should. I have enough connection with this person where I don't need to do that
Yeah,
anymore. They
yeah,
know what I'm doing.
yeah.
But yes, in the beginning, be like, "Hey, I want to feel loved," and one way you can show that is, you know,
Mhm.
X, Y, Z.
I mean, I had a well, someone with whom I worked I had to make a very direct ask. And then just recognizing, oh, the if we're starting from very different places about how we see the world, how we feel the world, how we interact with our own emotions, it seemed crystal clear to me that you should ask me a question. And then I remembered that it is crystal clear to me, and you should ask me a question, but I don't think it's crystal clear to you. And so I can either present you or say, I need more from you. And this is what it looks like. And we had that conversation. It
And
was
doesn't it make everything so much better? Like,
well, what's interesting is that it gives it I think it gives someone a fair starting point from which they can then meet you or not meet you. But if you don't have that starting point, then they're not meeting you might have nothing to do with their desire to try to meet you, right? Because you're like, well, I didn't even know we were missing each other. I thought you were getting what you needed. So this was a moment of, okay, well, it's weird for me to ask you, but it's weirder for me to be mad at you and not ask you.
right.
And then
And that's
hope that it's
really
going
well
to change
said.
magically. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, and that's really well said, that giving people a fair starting point by communicating, what it is that you want and need or what your expectations are.
As we develop long-term relationships, not just romantic, but long-term relationships in general, like bringing people into our experience, inviting them in so that we can hopefully avoid as tall of walls as may be built from silent expectations. And bring communication and work with them. And through that long term nature of it, it becomes a practice. The relationship itself is a practice where it becomes more comfortable. The longer that we're in it, the more that we do it. And I think, like, when we structure and we look at relationship that way, like, is desire going to fade in a relationship like that?
It'll ebb and flow, right? As it does. And it's just being aware of it. And like you said, if we're making this a practice, the walls aren't going to get as high. We're going to catch it before it gets too high. We'll bring it down. And if desire fades, we're going to be aware of it and work towards bringing that back if we have the capacity to do so.
So I would like to talk a little bit about sex
Let's talk about
as we
sex, baby. Let's
let's talk
talk about
about you
you
and
and
me.
me. Let's talk about.
Uh, because as we get close to wrapping up, because I think there's a lot of power also in understanding sex as this broad expanse of things that could potentially happen, and breaking some of the expectation we have that it should always. So we spoke earlier about that initial, explosive sexual experience, but I have found that there is real delight in sexual experience that maybe is just a little bit of this or a hint of that, or without agenda or without an end game. Can you talk a little bit about how we can empower ourselves by relinquishing an idea that it must always be, and then fill in the blank?
Oh my gosh. Or, I mean, we could even talk about the expectation of the orgasm,
Mhm.
right? And, oh, we have to finish. Otherwise, it's not sex. And not only do we have to finish, but we have to finish at the same time. And so you have all these expectations but it's a performance, right? Every time you have those expectations, it becomes a performance. And so when we can step out of performance, tap into our bodies, tap into curiosity, then we're so much more present in the experience and it becomes so much more fun because then, you're letting loose a little bit. You're you're laughing at little things that happen along the way. You can communicate, oh, hey, I noticed you look a little uncomfortable there. Should we adjust? Should we move? Right? You can tap into little things like that that are going to enhance the sexual experience. And again, it's not about orgasming, it's about connection, it's about pleasure.
Well, I want to talk about coming or orgasming because there have been moments in my own life when, for any number of reasons, I haven't orgasmed. And almost never in those moments am I thinking, I'm not orgasming because you're not doing enough for me. Like, you're not doing it, you're not enough, or like, it's almost, I don't think I've ever had that experience, right? And yet, when I've been with someone and they don't orgasm, I have felt that, like, well, was that not, did I not do it? Like, is everything okay? So what would you say to someone to help work through that sort of knee jerk, you didn't come, you hate me?
Talk during sex.
Yeah.
Okay, talk during sex. Okay, we're getting a lot of great gold nuggets in this episode.
And I don't even mean like dirty talk, right? I just mean like, is this good? Do you like this? What could I do differently? How do you like to stroke your dick? Do you like it more on the tip? Do you like it down at your shaft? Okay, cool. Is this good for you? Like, and just asking those questions, because oftentimes you're doing a good job and your partner's like, oh no, that feels amazing. Keep doing exactly like you're doing it. And that gives you that reassurance. Oh, okay, cool. I don't need to be in my head about it. I can be present and just keep going at it.
Yeah, I think we grew up in a culture where even when we were actively trying to communicate those things, we were supposed to do it non-verbally.
Yeah.
When I really like it, and then like you get more quiet when it's like not, as opposed to being brave enough to say, grip a little tighter, or loosen your grip, or a little less toothy.
A little less toothy, yes.
I mean, it's great feedback.
You don't see that in porn. When have you ever seen a porn that is like, oh, hey, is this uncomfortable? Do we need to move something? Do you like that? Unless it's like a performative, like, do you like that, daddy? Right.
Sure.
And so,
wait, I love that you added a shoulder roll to the.
Do you like that? Like, I'm just over my shoulder, right? My dog style in this situation.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, there's so much to explore in this topic. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to ask you one final question for anyone that is listening that is curious about the desire in their own relationship, whether desire is on the upswing or the downswing, it's ebbing or it's flowing. Like, what would you tell that person listening right now about the nature of their desire?
That the nature of your desire has much less to do with your partner and much more to do with yourself, right? Oftentimes we think desire is, I'm not attracted to my partner anymore. We're not in love anymore. They don't love me. And it's more often to do with you. And so I invite you to get curious about what's missing in your own life, in your own fulfillment, that's stopping you from showing up as a confident, magnetic human, right? And that's where you're going to be able to bring eroticism and desire back into your sex life, back into your partnership.
I love how you said that because it assumes that we are all capable of confidence and being magnetic. And I love that. So I believe that is true.
Yeah. 100%.
This is a thing that is available to all of us. We need to just work to understand it and then embrace it and feel it and live it.
And we've all done it before, right? Just like think about yourself as a child, like a confident child who's got no cares in the world, right? It's about returning back to that self that's operating without stigmas and shame and stories of how you should and shouldn't be. And so the more you can uncover that authentic self, you tap into that magnetism again.
Magnetism. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Nathan, thank you very much. I'm feeling very complete. Tim, how are you feeling?
I feel complete.
And Nathan?
Right. I feel complete and I didn't even orgasm. See?
Key takeaway. I can see it now. Thank you so much. Tim, will you take us out, please?
Well, let's close our eyes.
Yeah.
Take a deep inhale. Full exhale. And it is with deep appreciation and gratitude for any insights, awarenesses, and understandings that may have been gained today in this shared sacred space of brotherhood that we now release the archetypes and the spirits that were called in. And as we all leave this circle, I wish you safety, connection, brotherhood, and love. With these words, our container is open but not broken. Oh.
Oh.